When I first arrive here, you don't seem to enjoy it. I know that isn't the case. Yes, it is. Actually, it isn't. You're not dealing with that. It's just because I don't. It's only because I'm unsure of which Parker I'll receive when you arrive. Fans of the Gold Rush are furious with Parker Schnabel's startling decisions, particularly after Ricky Ace, his erstwhile right-hand man, was betrayed in a way that almost destroyed everything Rick had worked so hard to achieve. Rick was forced to fight tooth and nail by himself as Parker spent millions acquiring land like a king. Was Parker only thinking about his own enormous gold dreams? Or did he really lose sight of Rick's years of devotion to him? Let's investigate whether Parker's enterprise was founded on unfulfilled promises, leaving Rick to rebuild his damaged mining life. A mountain worth millions of dollars of ambition. Parker Schnabel, the young man who inherited his grandfather John Schnabel's large nugget mine, learned to conquer as well as dig gold. His aspirations swiftly outstripped any one assertion. We see a Parker who sees an empire just waiting to be established, not just riches in the ground. He reportedly spent an astounding $25 million to purchase his neighbor's land, an enormous risk that might either turn him into a legend or ruin him completely. The only issue is that we have set a goal of 5,000 ounces, and both facilities must produce high-quality gold each week for the remainder of the season. This went beyond a few additional acres. It covered an astounding 1,100 acres at Golder Run and an additional 950 acres at Sulphur Creek. Parker's dominion suddenly spanned approximately 10,000 acres of great gold-rich Yukon territory, on top of the thousands of acres he already possessed. It's an enormous quantity of land, more than most miners could even comprehend, let alone manage. His small crew was soon put to the strain by the weight of this enormous empire. His team was already overworked from attempting to maintain several sites, such as the 114 acres at the bridge cut, the 20 acres they were mining at the long cut, and the 8 acres they were stripping at one lease. Now they had even more ground to cover. There was a great deal of pressure. Then catastrophe hit, as it always does in the harsh Yukon. An essential piece of metal in the wash plant. The enormous device that separates dirt from gold broke. There wouldn't be any gold without that wash facility. That's here. The 25 million land sale cannot be paid for if there is no gold. The plant was down each and every day. It had a huge financial impact. Parker's mechanics had to work quickly to restart the process by welding and strengthening, doing whatever it needed. There are 20, indicating that location. You received 40. At 40 feet, we must be 16 feet broad, and Dummett must be capable of cleaning up after himself at 52 feet. However, Parker's plan for ISO went beyond simply purchasing additional land. Securing a royalty agreement with Metallic Minerals Corporation for more than 8 km of undeveloped land at Australia Creek in the famed Klondike Gold District was another startling move he took. This was a wise move. He consented to give Metallic Minerals a portion of the gold he extracted rather than paying a hefty sum up advance to purchase the land. Due to its use as a source of water for traditional dredging activities, this land had not been mined for decades. With today's technology, Parker may win a lot of money. He promised to mine it for at least $1 million annually, and the initial findings were astounding. In just 2 days, a single way, in from Sulphur Creek produced over 140 ounces of gold, nearly twice as much as his disastrous bridge cut did in a week. That plot of property was almost paid for by this one haul. The gamble was paying off. But Parker was no longer only considering gold. But he had a vision of the future. He understood that there was more than just gleaming yellow metal on the soil at Sulphur Creek. Other precious minerals, such as those found in cell phones, electric automobiles, and other futuristic devices, were abundant in it. Parker had a wider picture in mind than other miners who were solely interested in gold, rare earth minerals, copper, and lithium. The fact that Big Red doesn't consume more than 100 ounces per week irritates me a lot. We're still far from 5,000 ounces, which is to be expected at this time of year, but the issue is that we're not on course to reach that goal. He began collaborating with businesses that understood how to extract these additional resources. To ensure he would have income even if the price of gold fell, he even began purchasing real estate, clever properties in expanding cities, and commercial assets. Parker was no longer merely a gold prospector. He was developing into a savvy businessman who was creating a long-lasting empire. The empire had a vision that extended well beyond the next gold weigh-in. Fans on forums and social media began to ask, "This is amazing for Parker. But what about Rick Ness?" As Parker was making these enormous deals and creating this untouchable empire. They saw Parker spending millions of dollars and growing quickly, and they thought of Rick, who had been such a devoted and important part of Parker's early success. They questioned whether Parker was losing sight of those who had assisted him in achieving his goal of complete dominance. Of governance. Some believed that Parker was becoming into a businessman. They would ask, "He's got all this cash and all this land. Couldn't he throw some good ground Rick's way or help him out with equipment when Rick's struggling? No devotion." He had a difficult journey from Parker's sidekick to his own. Let's now examine Rick and Ness. Hard knocks, lofty aspirations, and a great deal of heart are all part of his story. Rick was born in Escanaba, Michigan, on March 5, 1981, into a blue-collar family who owned a construction firm. From a young age, he and his twin brother Randy learned how machines operated, essentially growing up behind the controls of large machinery. Rick pursued football, a different goal for a while. He got a position on his college squad, since he was a gifted athlete in high school. He had to find a new route after that dream was dashed by a severe head injury. "I've always had a passion for music, so I taught myself how to play the stand-up bass, joined a band, and we traveled the world on full-time tour for 7 years. Surprisingly, that new route brought him to music. He relocated to Milwaukee, Wisconsin in the early 2000s. He also became a member of the 357-string band in 2004. They performed a gritty sound that suited Rick's personality, a cool blend of punk rock and bluegrass. The band became quite well known once he took up the upright bass, putting out 3 albums: Ghost Town, 2006, Fire and Hail, 2008, and Lightning from the North, 2010. They played for large crowds while on a hectic tour. However, the band disbanded by 2011, and Rick was searching for his next challenge. That experience arrived in a most surprising manner. I met Parker at one of our final performances, which was at a state fair in Hans, Alaska. At a carnival in Hans, Alaska, where the 357-string band was performing, Rick got to know a young Parker Schnabel, who was already well known from Gold Rush. Despite Rick's lack of knowledge about gold mining, Parker recognized something in him. Perhaps that toughness, that work ethic, and that construction experience. Parker offered Rick a position on his crew 9 months later. In Gold Rush's 3rd season, Rick joined Parker. He picked things up quickly, and his proficiency with large equipment made him an invaluable asset. By season 5, he had become Parker's right-hand man and foreman, managing operations and guiding the squad through 6 full seasons. However, Rick had aspirations of operating a mine of his own. He ultimately made the decision to go out on his own in season 9. Despite the significant danger, he achieved an incredible 105 ounces of gold worth over $1 million, surpassing his first season goal of 1,000 ounces. He demonstrated his ability. He was under a lot of strain in season 12, when a landowner threatened to take away his claim unless he doubled his gold production. Rick was able to purchase the site outright when he and his team dug deep and produced their largest gold haul ever. This victory was more than simply monetary. It demonstrated that he was a legitimate mine boss. He made an investment in a new water pump and extracted more than $155,000 worth of gold even in season 14, when technical failures threatened to derail him. A fighter was Rick Ness. Incredibly so. The first obstacle has been overcome. We've installed the pump. The water is dripping out. We're hoping to truck the money out of it in 4 days. Right now, we're this much closer to gold. All I can say is that. However, Rick also suffered a very catastrophic blow to his journey, a treachery that left him feeling deeply shaken. Parker wasn't the source. He had significant equipment stolen from him by someone he trusted and who was connected to his organization. Losing money or tools wasn't the only thing at stake. It was an intense personal injury. Something like that can make someone want to give up. So informed to give up. In addition to trying to replenish his inventory, Rick had to pick himself up, invest in new security, and boost his own crew's morale and faith in others. He had to deal with the community's critics while attempting to refocus his thoughts. This is where the online fandom really starts to heat up. In the tremendous effort to repair, they witness Rick Ness, a man they have watched develop from a greenhorn to a mind boss, coping with this heartbreaking betrayal. Then they encounter Parker Schnabel, his old boss, for whom he put in a lot of work, negotiating land agreements worth $25 million and discussing branching into rare earth minerals. The disparity is startling. Fans began posting loud queries on social media and on forums. When Rick was going through hell, where was Parker? Did Parker provide his longtime friend and foreman with any assistance, tools, or a suitable location? For many viewers, Parker's silence, or at the very least, his absence of any public display of support for Rick at this extremely difficult time, was deafening. They believed that Parker could have easily given Rick a lifeline with his newfound huge fortune and abundance of resources. He seemed to have forgotten the devotion Rick had showed him for 6 seasons, as evidenced by his apparent lack of action. This sentiment, that Parker abandoned Rick or at best, didn't care enough to assist when Rick really needed it, is frequently at the heart of the rage. Rick, you're behaving like a child. You're turning me into an adversary. That's not my intention. Observing Parker's own leadership style with his staff adds another level of annoyance to the fan base. We hear about a demanding season in which Parker's unwavering drive drove his own team to the very end. Despite several mechanical failures, he insisted on working for hours on end in frigid temperatures. One of his team members actually passed out on the spot from pure weariness due to the extreme pressure, a startling incident that made Parker reconsider his strategy. He began to make adjustments, modify work schedules, and promote more sleep. When fans notice this, they make the connection. How much sympathy would Parker genuinely have for Rick's struggles on his own if he could push his own crew so hard for his own objectives? Parker is portrayed as a persistent workaholic who prioritizes his own financial gain over the welfare of his workers. Fans argue that Parker's response, or lack thereof, is simply more of the same self-centered ambition as Rick, his previous top guy, faces ruin. On a forum, a fan might write, he learned to give his own crew more rest after nearly breaking them. But after being robbed blind, did he even call Rick to ask if he needed help? Now, it's all about Parker. There is a significant gap that fans frequently fill with resentment and disillusionment toward Parker, because Rick's traumatic betrayal and recovery are described independently from Parker's empire building, with no crossover or reference to assistance. The juxtaposition of these two tales and what is not seen appears to be the source of the fans' error. There isn't any footage of Parker contacting Rick following the theft. Nothing about Parker giving Rick a great bargain on some of his recently purchased land is mentioned. Online rumors and ire are fueled by this perceived silence, this apparent lack of support or companionship from a former mentor to a protege under dire circumstances. Supporters who cherish the relationship they witnessed between Parker and Rick in previous seasons believe that Parker may have forgotten the dedication and hard work that Rick provided to his early success as he rose to prominence as a mining tycoon. They question if Parker had the capacity to care about his old friend's hardships given his preoccupation with his own enormous growth. Fans' outrage at Parker Schnabel's alleged disregard for Rick Ness's predicament is still resounding with unrelenting ferocity on Reddit threads, YouTube comment sections, and online forums. It doesn't work to use my money to operate your own mine site, which is how you're doing this show, without working with me. It's more than just a tale of two miners to many. It is a fable about friendship, loyalty, and treachery set in the current era. Parker, the young mining genius who became a multimillionaire billionaire, is on one side acquiring land and starting new businesses. His former right-hand man Rick, on the other hand, is battling financial ruin, personal issues, and the crushing weight of treachery from his own squad. This type of extreme contrast is what reality TV is all about. But it can also make it difficult for devoted viewers to distinguish fact from fiction. You have to zoom out and look at Gold Rush as a meticulously crafted narrative machine in order to comprehend this conflagration. By fusing the harsh realities of Klondike gold mining with the unfiltered feelings of actual people in dire situations, the show has captured the attention of millions of viewers since its premiere on October 10, 2003. Don't get me wrong, the show is crafted, polished, and edited to keep viewers emotionally engaged, even while the filth and danger are very real. Fundamentally, Gold Rush is based on a formula that is both predictable and successful. Data. A different mining crew, such as Tony Beats, Fred Lewis, Rick Ness, or Parker Schnabel, is introduced in each season. The season-long goal is to surpass the gold total from the previous year. Freaks do reap, the narrative engine is fueled by the weekly crises. Goldway, in staff walkouts, tense disputes, equipment failures, and weather delays. These components go beyond the job description. They are the beating heart of storytelling. They produce cliffers, wins, and stakes. You have to look after your family, don't you? Don't you? It's crucial since there wouldn't be any possibilities for surgery if that treatment didn't work. Therefore, I'm not quite sure what that will mean. The audience is always watching survival, not just mining. Fans are so naturally drawn to Rick Ness's season 14 plot, which revolves around a longtime employee's betrayal and his attempt to start over from the beginning. It's uncooked. It's sentimental. That's sentimental. Additionally, it seems like there is a stark quiet when Parker Schnabel makes no mention of it or shows any signs of support. The editors of the show take advantage of that gap. Rick is seen alone and reeling from failures. Parker, on the other hand, is pushing his team harder than ever, making big deals and making huge moves. For some admirers, the contrast feels like a cold shoulder, yet it writes itself. A betrayal of legacy as well as friendship. Is it that easy, though? The complete reality is never shown on reality TV. Several hours of video are compressed into short 43-minute segments. Discussions are cut short. You lose the subtleties. Clarity comes at the expense of context. Cute. It's quite possible, even probable, that Parker and Rick had conversations, that offers of assistance were made and turned down, and that Parker respected Rick's personal space while he was rebuilding. However, none of that is included in the final cut. Why? Because a silent display of off-camera unity is not as captivating as a lonely return. Think about this. Citing genuine mental health issues, such as seasonal sadness and grief over his mother's death, Rick took a significant break from Gold Rush during season 13. There was no dramatization of his absence to boost ratings. They just admitted it. The show continued his plot when he returned in season 14, with him attempting to regain his footing, rebuilding a team, and re-establishing his identity. It was a solitary arc, but it was also intensely intimate. I'm never excellent at leaving at the right time. I look after a number of things around here. And, well, at the moment, I simply have no other option, and if not, I'll be back in a week. The story required him to be alone, not because no one was interested. On the other hand, Parker's plot has focused on growth and development throughout the last few seasons. He is researching new minerals, purchasing land, and mining in uncharted areas. His organization has expanded beyond what most veterans of the gold rush would have thought was possible. He is more of a strict corporate leader under pressure to perform than a brash adolescent with something to prove. That change is adored by the camera. It's dramatic. It is aspirational. However, it also erodes his reputation. The scene is seen as Parker pushes his staff too hard, and someone passes out from tiredness. It might not pass muster if he takes a step back and thinks things through, alters his plan, or displays concern. He turns into the type of character that reality TV adores when he rushes to meet quotas and strives for production. Tenacious, ambitious, and a little risky. The silent deeds of generosity or encouragement. Ratings are not generated by them. When fans accuse Parker of neglecting Rick, this background is crucial. Perhaps he did, and perhaps he didn't. We're not positive. However, Gold Rush isn't set up to provide us the whole truth. It is set up to reveal the most striking fact. Parker, meanwhile, has never presented himself as the sympathetic mentor. He operates his business first. On television, in interviews, and in conversations with his team, he stated as much. High-pressure mining was always the foundation of his bond with Rick. There was competitiveness and hierarchy in addition to the camaraderie. Their paths parted once Rick ventured out on his own. It's business, not treachery. However, the optics are painful when one scene is clearly hurting while the other is doing well. The holes are filled by fans. Outraged. They provide the emotional connections that the show fails to do. And in the process, they occasionally create stories that are more dramatic than reality. Every silent episode confirms their perception of Parker as the icy tycoon and Rick as the fallen hero. There's more to this, though. The fans who support Rick are also sharing their favorite aspects of Gold Rush: authenticity, tenacity, and vulnerability. Heart is what people desire, not just gold. They also recognize their own battle in Rick's. The depression, the failed plans, the layoffs, and the effort to rise again. It strikes a chord. Therefore, even though it isn't, it feels betraying when Parker, who used to stand next to him, doesn't appear on screen with a hand outstretched. That is reality TV contradiction. It gives us a lot of information, but also very little view. It's possible that Parker Schnabel is not the evil that fans envision. Perhaps Rick Ness is not as isolated as he seems. However, perspective is crucial in the Gold Rush world, where mining and storytelling meet, and 1,000 stories are born in the quiet between two old friends. The majority of them were penned by fans rather than producers. While Rick struggled with betrayal, Parker's enterprise flourished. Was Parker need to assist, or is this pure greed? Put your mind aside. For more, like and subscribe.